Today on AniLysis, we're going to talk about everybody's favourite aspect of the Animorphs series, oatmeal. Yes, I know. Don't get too excited now. It comes largely from this book, book number 17, The Underground. And that is a pack of Oatalicious, oh-so-easy oats, which I imagine is much the same. I don't know, what are oats? I'm not a foodologist, how would I know? But this stuff is apparently really naughty for the Yerks. It's like a drug, okay? So it played a large role in what I consider to be largely a filler book. But also, what else is filling? Oats! It's basically porridge. That's what we call it over here. Porridge. 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 No, okay. In this book, we're introduced to a character called Mr. Edelman, who threw himself out of a window. And the Animorphs go to see what's up with him because Rachel's mother overheard him talking about Yerks, essentially. When they finally meet Mr. Edelman, they find out the wickedness that goes on when a Yerk ingests a very specific type of oatmeal, or porridge. I'm going to stop that now. Let's look at some quotes. Suddenly, he went into a spasm. It racked his body. He jerked wildly, wrapped his arms tight together, and tried to control it. His mouth snapped open and shut like some mad ventriloquist's dummy. But then he started raving. He was speaking in a strange, manic voice. What? Farum, yevt, kalash, sip, sip, sip. The pool, gahala, soap. Ah! Help! Karanch. It happens sometimes. It's the Yerk. You see, he's mad. Insane. He's in my head and he won't get out. But he's insane. Insane. The food! During the famine, after you AniLysis destroyed the one Kandrona, they found out that a certain food could help them get by. For a while, but there were problems with it. They discovered it quite by accident. No one guessed what it could do. No one realised it would prove addictive, but it did. Terribly addictive. And over time, the continued ingestion of it began to eliminate the Yerk's need for Kandrona rays. At the same time, it drove them crazy. You see, it seems to literally replace some of a Yerk's brainstem. Oatmeal, he said, but only the instant kind, and then only the maple and ginger flavour. Isn't there some way to get the Yerk out of your head? No. He will live as long as I do. So there are the important quotes from that part of the book talking about the oatmeal, what it does, and the effect it has on the Yerk and the human controller as well. It seems to replace the need for Kandrona rays to the point where once ingested, the Yerks become effectively immortal, depending on whether the host lives or not. They just stay inside the host with no need for Kandrona, no need for any oatmeal, no need for any other sustenance. It just lives forever. Vista 3 might find this information useful, but of course he doesn't take advantage of that because he's a complete dipstick. But one of the things it mentions is that it's supposed to, they assume, that it replaces part of the Yerk's brainstem. So the Yerk's brain literally turns to porridge. Is my brain a bit porridgey? Yes. I've been having too much of this stuff as well, you see. This poor chap, Mr. Edelman, is in a psychiatric ward because what seems to happen is he's in control for a lot of the time, but the Yerk occasionally has this spasm where it just, like Tourette's. The Yerk has Tourette's, control Tourette's, so occasionally it will just jump in, take control, and start Joe Bidening everywhere. And because he will never leave, this Mr. Edelman, he's forever cursed with this horrible thing. And eventually Rachel at the end of the book decides to break into the place and let him out. I criticise the book heavily for that because the implications of that are weird and probably not great. So yeah, what happens is the Yerk in the human controller ingests the oatmeal, it gets into the system, gets into the Yeerk's brain, turns their brain to slush, and then they open a Twitter account. A big part of this book was the Animorphs reacting to this news and working upon it. And at first they decide, we're going to flood the pool with oatmeal. So Marco goes out and buys loads of oatmeal, instant maple and ginger, mind. And they go through this whole palaver of digging a hole, finding a bat cave, flying into the pool, and finding out that there's already a massive stash there, making the whole plot before that completely irrelevant. A whole part of this thing about this book is doing something, and then at the very end just finding another way to do it, making the first way completely pointless and a waste of writing. Which, if done well, can work, but here it didn't. But we're not here to do a review of book 17. We're here to review Oatmeal. I can't tell you too much about it because I'm not a scientist, unfortunately. The Animorphs are in the Yeerk pool, and Rachel just wandering around before Cassie magically appears in front of her. She sees this going on. He reached into the backpack the girl was carrying. He lifted out a small plastic container. He shoved it in the girl's face. What do you call this? It's just cereal. It's something the humans call Raisin Bran. Human bodies need fibre in order to function properly, so the man cut her off. He opened the container and sniffed it. He held it out for her to see. No raisins. Don't lecture me about humans. I've been in this host body for 2 years, and I know the smell of maple and ginger. Fool! You're as stupid as the humans with their drugs. Never thought I'd see self-respecting Yeerks lower themselves to behaving like humans. There's a Prohibition-era feel to this, or like a drugs, the US war on drugs feel to this. Which, again, it could have been interesting and could have been done well. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But then we find out how much the Yeerks have been holding on to this stuff, this awful drug. Too many of our people going host happy. These human hosts can be insidious. Check this in with the contraband locker. They're running out of room over there. They've taken in over 100 human kilograms of this stuff. They kept the oatmeal in more of a shack than a building. It was like one of those tin sheds that people put in their back gardens to store rakes and hoses and the lawnmower. However, it was guarded by 4 very alert, very serious looking hawkbajir. The shed was perhaps 20 metres from the edge of the Yeerk pool itself, and just behind the human cafeteria. Okay, so let me get this straight, Yeerks. You've got these things, right, called Dracon beams. This one's not painted yet, by the way, I've still got to do that. Which can dissolve things. You do it quite frequently, just to get rid of things, to make things go away, so that they don't exist anymore for people to find. And you've confiscated all of this oatmeal, which is so detrimental to your cause. And you just plonk it in a shed 20 metres or so from the edge of the pool where all your hosts feed, and by the human cafeteria, the people most affected by it, you plonk it all in a little tin shed in a big storage area, which Marco at some point manages to go in and sit on as a gorilla. So not great security either, apparently. I mean, I know there are 4 alert hawkbajir, but we know how alert they truly are. I mean, read the rest of the series. They're not very useful, about as useful as toothpicks on a man with no teeth. Why didn't you just use the Dracon beams to dissolve it and be gone? Well, no, because this book needed the plot to carry. They needed the plot because they got halfway through this book and said, oh, actually, this getting it through the mole thing isn't going to work. Instead of just rewriting the book and rethinking it, no, we'll just make it so that there's already a big stash there, right next to the pool. Yeah, great. Anyway, less ragging on this book. It's an awful book. That is pretty much a summary of Oatmeal. They decided, well, no, let's finish it off. So a barrel gets thrown into the Yeerk pool because again the Yeerks are idiots, and Visser 3 is happy for it to be blown up in the Yeerk pool for all these Yeerks to have their brains turned to porridge. And then it was never used or even really mentioned again, as far as I remember. So that is Oatmeal and the impact it's had on this series. It played a part in what was generally a pretty bad book. But what isn't bad? Oatmeal! Go eat it for your breakfast. It's damn good for you. This has been AniLysis. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been one of the weirder ones, I'm sure, but there's going to be loads of these to come. If I'm covering freaking oatmeal and stuff like that, you know I'm going to cover everything. So, stay tuned. I shall see you next time. Ta-ra!